Hey guys, Kiwi here. In this video I'll be jumping into episode 4 of The Last of Us, and wow, this show just keeps getting better and better. This episode perfectly mixed slow character building along with some pretty intense action. But first things first, I think they nailed the Joel and Ellie dynamic this episode. Since the first 2 episodes were with Tess and episode 3 was mainly Bill, I've been waiting for the post-Bill story with only Joel and Ellie, and the show did not disappoint. I'm gonna be honest, I've been iffy on the Ellie casting ever since before the show even started airing, but I really feel like Bella Ramsey is starting to grow on me at this point. The show is also perfectly mixing staying loyal to the game with one-to-one dialogue between Joel and Ellie, 2 original scenes for the show, and to be honest, I liked both equally. For starters, the opening scene where Joel's siphoning gas while trying to explain it to Ellie was good banter, and then of course remixing this to be the moment where Ellie first pulls out her pun book was great chemistry. I love how Joel's not having any of it, but Ellie's so excited over every punchline. Then there's the truck driving scenes, which were complete bangers. From Joel saying how the music that Ellie gives him is before his time, to Ellie giving Joel a hard time with the Prawn magazine, the show is great at paying respects to the source material in an incredibly satisfying way to see it all come to life in live action. Not only am I glad that they did this scene, I'm impressed and happy as a fan of the games that they did it so well. Plus, although Joel tells Ellie that she's just cargo, that has to be Joel trying to force himself to keep her at arm's length, as he's trying to not get attached to her even though she is clearly growing on him. I also think the Tommy exposition worked really well, even though that dialogue was remixed into the truck scene from a different moment in the game, it still worked just as well. The camping scenes are a great example of having TV show original scenes with great chemistry between the two. I love how even though Joel comforts Ellie that strangers won't find them in their sleep, it causes Joel to become uneasy about it to the point that he stays up after she falls asleep to keep a lookout. This also perfectly foreshadows the ending cliffhanger with Henry and Sam being able to sneak up on them in their sleep, since Joel actually fell asleep the second time, but more on that in a little bit. Now in regard to the hunters, although I'm a bit iffy with the leader, I love how Jeffrey Pierce, Tommy's voice actor from the game, plays an original hunter character on the show. And then the ambush scene was like 99% perfect, I love it. Except for the fact that it would've been cool to hear Joel say he ain't even hurt right before he told Ellie to put her seatbelt on before stepping on the gas. Since the show's been so one-to-one with video game dialogue while adapting scenes from it, it's odd how they left out that one line while keeping everything else the same, but I digress, honestly, it doesn't matter, the ambush was awesome. I've been looking forward to the ambush scene all week, and I'm glad to say that it didn't disappoint. It's also incredibly impactful considering how much effort Joel and Ellie went through to get the truck just to crash it in the ambush. The gunfight was incredibly intense, and I love how we see Joel use a bolt-action rifle, which is one of the main weapons from the game. I also love how they remixed the end of the shootout to be the moment where Ellie had to step up and shoot a hunter to save Joel's life. Not only did the hunter begging for his life make the murder more impactful, but I actually don't mind how they had Joel kill him presumably with his own knife off screen. This put the viewers in Ellie's shoes as she went and hid through the hole in the wall while Joel killed him. Although the show could use more gore or violence from time to time, and since this is HBO, we all know they could do it considering Game of Thrones and all, but I'm fairly indifferent about it. Sometimes having gore happen off screen can make it even more impactful, kinda like the never fully show the monster horror rule. Without spoiling future events, the game also did this where they kept super gory scenes just out of frame for the characters to experience, but leaving the gruesome scenes up to the player's imagination, so it feels like the show is trying to have that same kind of impact. Now about Joel not wanting Ellie to use a gun all season long leading up to her saving his life with one. Although I do really like how they remixed it for the show, I do want to go off on a tangent about it for a moment. They emphasized Joel not wanting Ellie to have a gun so dang much ever since episode 2 or maybe even episode 1, so after like 3 to 4 episodes of Ellie constantly asking for a gun just for Joel to say no every single time, it felt like they kind of just glossed over any potential internal conflict between them that they've been building up all season long. Plus having Ellie steal a gun and hide it from Joel seemed like it would add fuel to the fire, but after Ellie saves Joel's life, he accepts her having a gun surprisingly quick and instantly gives her back the handgun afterwards and teaches her how to properly use it. I get how Ellie going against what Joel said is the only way she could have gotten the gun, which is what ended up saving his life, so it does make sense, especially since it proved him wrong. However, Joel was surprisingly mature and self-aware about this fact, when it seemed like he'd initially get mad at her for it even after she just saved his life. I say this because in the game, that's exactly what happened. Joel was persistent about her still not having a gun even after she saved his life, at least for a short while longer. In the game, when Ellie asked Joel if he was happy that she saved his life, he lashed out at her by saying something along the lines of, "I'm glad some kid didn't shoot my head off," showing how stubborn he is on the matter. Whether he's just stubborn or doesn't like admitting that he's wrong, Joel lashing out on Ellie in the game made you dislike Joel for his reaction to it, showing how he's not a perfect person by having this character flaw. Also, it made it so much more impactful for when Joel finally did decide to smarten up and give her a gun to cover him, realizing that he was wrong to lash out at her in the first place, while admitting to her that he was thankful for her saving his life after all. Disclaimer, I understand how the show's an adaptation, so things are obviously going to be changed and remixed, which is completely fine, and honestly, I like most of what they've changed. I don't expect everything to be the same. I'm not bothered at all by things being changed, but by skipping over Joel getting mad at Ellie, they totally skipped emphasizing Joel's character development from it. In the show, they were so on the nose building up to this potential internal conflict by having Ellie ask for a gun over and over for multiple episodes to the point that it felt like they were beating a dead horse. Like, I get it, I know what you're building up to, just to gloss over it and not do it, instead simply cutting to the resolution without the inner conflict that they were seemingly building up to. As I said, I do love the moment in the show for what it is, and I am kinda glad that Joel never lashed out at Ellie like he did in the game, but it's just surprising to see Joel not get mad at her, since the show purposely seemed like it was heavily building up to the same internal conflict that we saw in the game. But I'm just rambling in circles now, so moving on, let's talk about the Henry and Sam reveal along with what led up to it. I love how Joel finally starts opening up to Ellie more through actually laughing at one of her puns after beating her to the punchline. It's a great moment that feels genuine and real. The entire episode already had great character building between the two, so this felt like icing on the cake for me in regard to their dynamic. I also like the realism of Joel having difficulties hearing out of his right ear due to shooting guns without ear protection for so many years, especially since it was built up exposition to explain why Joel didn't hear Henry and Sam sneak up on him. Also, back at the camping scene, Joel wasn't sleeping with his back turned to Ellie because he's trying to be cold or anything, it's because he actually wanted to hear what was going on. So Joel fell asleep with his left ear facing up so he could hear, but he must have rolled over in his sleep to have his right ear facing up, which is the one he can't hear out of well, explaining why he didn't hear Henry and Sam, or even Ellie trying to wake him up to the point that she had to repeatedly yell out his name. I think the episode ending with the Henry and Sam introduction was great, so without spoiling what happens next with them, let's discuss what we already know. Apparently, Henry and Sam have some sort of former affiliation with the Hunters, as the Hunters know them by name and have already been trying to track them down, even before wrongfully blaming Henry for the murders that Joel committed in self-defense. This is definitely a slight remix from the game, so I'm interested to see how this new addition to the story will potentially play out, and I'll discuss the differences more after next week's episode when we see more of Henry and Sam. Also, since Sam obviously made the drawings that the leader of the Hunters found, I assume the reason the creators had the red face paint on Sam was for the TV show only viewers to make the connection that these people are the Henry and Sam characters that the Hunters are after. Now, did Sam just paint around his eyes simply because he's just a kid messing around, pretending to paint a superhero mask on himself or something, or is there a deeper meaning to it? Anyways, I think I'm gonna give this episode a 9 to a 9.5 out of 10. This episode was near perfect, and it may be my favorite episode of the show, even potentially above episode 1. But what did you think of episode 4? For fans of the games, did you enjoy how they adapted all the video game moments? And for TV show only viewers, what did you think of the moments such as the pun book, the truck scenes with the music in the prawn magazine, the ambush, Ellie saving Joel, etc.? I list all these off because although these are all widely loved iconic moments from the games, I'm interested to hear how TV show only viewers think about them without the biased nostalgia that us game fans might have. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to episode 5. I don't usually look at the trailer for next week, for this show at least, but I did, and without spoiling anything, wow, it looks like it's going to be really good. There's a few video game moments I'm really looking forward to seeing, along with some pretty intense action. I really hope that the build up to the Hunter story arc has good payoff next episode, because it makes sense that they'd give a name to the faces of the Hunters and actually give a leader and a right-hand man instead of them just all being nameless red shirt enemies. And I'm really excited to see the whole Henry and Sam arc too. I've been looking forward to that ever since before the show started airing, and now it's finally coming to fruition. Also, episode 5 is apparently airing early Friday, February 10th instead of Sunday, February 12th because of the Super Bowl and all of that. So we get another episode early, but then for the rest of the show, it's back to Sunday. So we're gonna have to wait a few extra days for episode 6. That being said, I'd appreciate a like on the video if you've enjoyed anything I've said today, and subscribe for more Last of Us content in the near future. But most importantly, I thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out.